Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Upper Darby firefighter pension meeting to order. Guess we'll move right into seeing no public. I guess there's no public input. Guess we'll move it through the agenda, the approval and payment of the bills. I know we have a few bills here. We have payment for our legal retainer fees. There's actually two. Only a signature, and that's a total of $7,500. And then we have a bill from Joe Duda, our actuary, for a lot of work that's been done, and that's for $6,425.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the bills. Second, Thornton. All those in favor?
Aye. I don't
Opposed?
think there's any other, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I don't think there's any other bills from the last meeting that we have with Kara being out. I mean, that's all that I know of right now.
No, I believe that's correct, and we have had some administrative hurdles with our secretary being out, but I think we should be caught up, so I appreciate that. Thank
Good.
you to everyone.
Okay. We'll move to the report of our investors. Mike?
Thank you.
Sure.
It's a pleasure to see everybody in person finally. I think it's been 2 years. The first Zoom meeting, one of the first Zoom meetings we had was with the new board here when the market was down about 35%. And we were coming in to tell you guys we were going to rebalance and sell bonds and buy stocks at a 40% discount. And everybody thankfully agreed. That worked out pretty well. As you know, just give you a summary, we're the second half of the management team here. We were given the charge early on to be the more aggressive of the two. So our charge was a 75% equity, 25% fixed income. Clearly, since our history using the index approach from dating back to 2011, we've been rewarded for the teamwork as a group to lean towards equities as a whole as the plan. So we manage the more aggressive side of it, and in wealth management does a more stable risk management approach. And the total allocation is roughly 65% equities, 35% bonds. I'm going to go through our performance. I'm thinking that Paul's going to be on eventually on the Zoom, or is he? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Let me check with our secretary.
Okay. So anyway, given that more aggressive approach, we've because stocks have done much better over the last 10 years, and we've been given that higher charge, the performance on the more aggressive side has been higher due to mainly leaning towards equity versus risk management. But we've also the rebalancing, short-term strategic decisions that we've made have helped dramatically. And overall, the decision to lean more towards equities than most public pension plans has really been a benefit to the fire pension here. I'm going to bring you on the right-hand side is the performance report for 2021. Bring you to page 13. Now, this is our, the part of the pension that we manage. Usually Paul will go through their side, and then he'll do the combined performance of the plan. So since 2011, we've been up, return has been at 9.83 average return. Bonds over that period of time were up about 3, and the total stock market up about 10.5. For 2021, the third year in a row of double-digit numbers, up roughly 14.36. Bond market was down roughly 1.6. Most investors were shocked. Believe it or not, most retail investors don't think bonds can lose money. In a rising interest rate market, as interest rates go up, bond values drop because somebody can now make more money lending Coca-Cola money now when interest rates are higher than they could have 6 months ago. So the person that lent Coca-Cola money 6 months ago, if they want to sell their bond because they're getting less interest, would have to sell it at a discount, right? We were fortunate in the beginning in our first meeting last year, we told you that strategically we were somewhat concerned about interest rates rising quickly. So we dramatically shortened the duration of the bond portfolio. What that did, think of if you own a shorter term CD at a bank and a longer term CD. If you go to cash in the shorter term CD, you're going to get hit with less of a penalty than you would a longer term CD. That's effectively what we did with the bond portfolio. We dramatically reduced the duration of that bond portfolio. So what that did, if you go to page 8, so on page 8, about the middle of the top, right after the top blue line, you see bonds total. Your bond portfolio on our side of the asset management was even at 0.03, where the entire bond market during that time frame was down about 1.6. It's harder to beat the bond market than it is the stock market. So to have about a 1.5% overperformance compared to the bond market is pretty significant. So we were thrilled with that. On the stock side, if you go to page 10, your stock portfolio was up roughly 19.74%. We benefited from rebalancing as we have over the last 3 years. What's happened is rebalancing, you could have argued years ago how well rebalancing worked. Well, over the last 3 years, rebalancing has been pretty significant in a positive attribute to the pension plan here because there's been so much volatility. So the example that I give, not just between stocks and bonds, we've been selling stocks and buying bonds when stocks are going up. We've been selling bonds and buying stocks when stocks are going down. But between different asset classes, at the end of 2020, if you remember, technology stocks went way up. You had Zoom and all that kind of stuff. So at year end, large cap growth stocks, which you own them all, all the technology stocks were way up. So we took from them and bought value stocks that didn't do as well in 2020, your Caterpillars, and those companies got affected the most by the pandemic. And what happened in the first quarter of 2021 is large cap value started to come back with thinking of there would be some sort of bill for bridges and building. And so you saw large cap value come up pretty good. Then what we did is sold large cap value at the end of the first quarter in 2021 and bought large cap growth cheap again. And then large cap growth came roaring back. So what our clients remember is typically we're buying on sale and that we own everything. And it's pretty low cost, but over the long run, we're thrilled with where we are, over a 9% return since 2011. There are a lot of municipalities that would trade with that, and certainly the state would absolutely trade with you guys in a second. So that's where we are. For 2022, the biggest thing I'm reminding our clients, I keep getting asked, we do now 130 some municipalities, and every once somebody asks, okay, Mark or Mike, when's the market going to correct or crash? Well, the market corrects. There's a slide in the left-hand side that I've been showing you guys probably for about 10 years. It's on the left-hand side. It looks like this. It's probably one of the coolest slides done by JP Morgan. It says annual returns, intra-year declines. On average, the S&P 500 will correct by about 14% every single year, but 75% of the time rebounds and ends up positive. So when somebody says, well, when do you expect the market to correct? I expect it to correct every single year, and we look smart eventually. It's just how long is it going to take for us to look smart? In most cases, the market will rebound back very, very quickly. So it's impossible to time it, and that's why we constantly rebalance. And we rebalance from cash flow, we rebalance automatically as well. So this is just kind of letting you know, if you don't know, the stock market and the bond market for the first time in a while have both been down at the beginning of 2022. We already rebalanced and took advantage of the market being lower. And last week and partially this week, we'll see what happens with some concerns over the next day or two. But the two big things we're looking at are inflation, which normally what's helped us is we've been kind of middle of the road, right? We've been one of the best at forecasting over 10-year period, 20-year period. This is my 30th year in the business. We expect inflation to be somewhere half of where it is now. So it's running up to 7. We had expectations of 2 early on before the pandemic. We think in reality it's around 3.5. We think the market will settle out both on the bond side and the stock side. If you look at the bond market, long-term bonds are telling you that inflation really isn't a long-term issue. You're more looking 6 to 8 months out. If you look at inflation protected right now, it's kind of even. So if you buy inflation protected bonds right now, the expectation is that inflation is going to steady out eventually. So we do think things will calm down a little bit towards the second half of the year, but we're watching inflation, we're watching jobs. Things that are out of the realm of expectations are Ukraine, Russia, Taiwan, China, but things like that have always been short-term buying events. We've always benefited, believe it or not, from those type of events. Tsunamis in Japan years and years ago when I was sitting at the table here and the market was going down and we told you we were going to buy because there was a tsunami and we made out. The Gulf spill. These are all things that are outside of normal fundamental projections. So right now, we would continue to stay the course. We think you're going to be rewarded for leaning towards equities versus bonds over the long run. And at the same time, corrections should be expected. So we're 1 year through your next valuation. We've benefited dramatically from the last valuation, 2019 and 2020. Performance was over 35% for those 2-year periods. So that gave us the ability to do a lot of cool things. So the only thing that we expect is we just expect slightly lower performance from the bond and stock market over the short run. But given how far it's run, I think that should be expected. So with that, I'm going to, I thought Paul was going to be Zoom, but he would.
He is.
Oh, there you go, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
So,
There you- How are you?
so my absolute sincere apologies for not being there. I had this meeting down for next Thursday. In the 10 plus years that I've been working with you all, I have never missed a meeting. So I am so very, very sorry.
Well, you still didn't miss one.
Yeah, no worries. You're here, Paul.
Well, but I don't, I'm not sitting there with you all and I don't have my reports in front of you. So I will send them to you all as I typically do electronically. But if I can have a few moments, I can just give you guys my my report virtually.
Sure, that would be great.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So, so to start off, WMS's mandate is to not only manage the more conservative sleeve of the portfolio, but to also oversee the overall asset allocation according to the investment policy statement. And I can tell you through the end of the year, we were at the policy sort of maximum target for equities and fixed income of about 65% equities, 35% fixed income. The total portfolio as of year's end was about $48.6 million. And the calendar year of 2021 was a very good one, not only for the markets, but also for this overall portfolio. So when you take INR and WMS collectively, the overall portfolio for the calendar year was up about 12.2%. And for the 3-year period, about 15.6% annualized, and just shy of 9.8% annualized for the 5-year period. The WMS portion of the portfolio was more conservatively allocated. Again, we're trying to allocate around INR and to keep the overall asset allocation in line with our targets. The value as of year's end was about 18.59. And our allocation was roughly about 35% in capital appreciation, equity strategies, and the other 65% in more fixed strategies. So as a result, our performance, was a little more muted than the overall portfolio by design. And that's obviously helped us on a year-to-date period with all the volatility that Mike was just talking about. But for the calendar year of 21, we had an 8.8% overall rate of return. The fixed income portion of our portfolio, which ends up being a very large portion because of our mandate, was actually up 70 basis points for the year, which does not sound that great, but that's relative to a Barclays aggregate bond index, which was down 1.5%. And then the 3-year total portfolio performance for WMS is 13% annual, and then 8% annual for the 5-year period. And I just want to echo Mike's thoughts in terms of sort of the macro picture. When we last met in October of last year, I had said that, the response to the pandemic by the government and by the monetary policy basically just took what would have been future returns and pulled them into the present. And we saw that in 2020 and we saw that in 2021. Well, 2022 and beyond, I think, is going to be a period of time that's characterized of having the fundamentals catch up with the markets. And the real risk that we run, other than, all of the geopolitical stuff that's kind of always out there, and I don't mean to dismiss that, but from a financial perspective, the real risk that we run is that the Fed has to, pull that stimulus out of the market, and they have to do so in a way that combats inflation, but doesn't entirely wreck the economy. And I think this year, meaning 22, I think that we will continue to have strong growth, both from an economic perspective, as well as, from an earnings perspective. But unfortunately, we come into the year with valuations very high. And so I think I agree with INR in that we're going to have greater volatility and likely more muted returns. And one of the things that I had proposed after our last meeting, and I still would like you all to consider, is looking at a private strategy. I had sent it around to all of you. It's a strategy managed by a firm called Golub. It's a direct lending strategy, and this is a limited partnership, so it's not a marketable strategy. We had done something a couple of years ago, which was very, very lucrative to the plan in discounted cash flows. It's called the Chestnut Fund. And this is a somewhat similar strategy in that it's not a mark-to-market strategy, and should have a high single-digit rate of return with floating rate debt. So as interest rates rise, it too will go up. And I just wanted to double down and say it's something that I think we should strongly consider as a proxy for traditional fixed income. When we have such a conservative mandate here, it's going to be tough with a rising rate environment. And so it's something that I think makes a lot of sense. And then the last thing I just wanted to also mention was WMS is going to be reducing the fee for the plan by a third. So we'll be getting you all a new engagement agreement that reflects that.
Great.
Thank you, Paul. Much appreciated.
Thank you all.
Any questions for Mike or Paul?
I will say the Chestnut Fund, we did very well with that. I know it was a little tough in the beginning getting that set up and approved. And Jim Beal had scrutinized all that for us. Maybe you could delve into this idea a little deeper for us.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Paul, did you copy me on that?
Jim, if I didn't, I'll make sure I send it to you.
You could, that'd be great. The plan's
Send it to
bigger.
you either way.
The plan is bigger now, and non-traditional vehicles are showing up in more portfolios. So I think it's worth exploring.
The history for that, for the newer board members, it was something different that we had never engaged in before. And it took a while. We had a lot of discussion on it, and we had legal review of it. We were all, somewhat concerned, but we did move forward with it, and we did very well. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. Something like this, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, this would be considered an alternative investment, not like a traditional equity or fixed income investment. It is going to carry with it, by its definition and for its reason for existence, higher risk to attain higher return. So as a board member, I think it is very, very important that we understand what those risks are that we're taking, so that we can make a good decision here. The fact that we went into one of these things in the past and it worked out is absolutely no predictor that this would work out for us. So we've got to really do our due diligence and understand what the additional premium we're getting on this. Is it worth the risk than just staying with traditional returns?
Yeah, there is absolutely no question that is, the board's responsibility, and we will provide all the information necessary. What I will say is, when we think about risk, we think about it a couple of different ways. One is variability of returns, right? The fact that $1 today could be worth $1.20 tomorrow or 80 cents. The risk that you guys need to really focus on, and it's exactly what you're hitting on, is impairment of capital. So not just variability, but loss. And this strategy is, I will tell you, very conservative in that regard. So the default rates historically for this manager are very, very low. Even when you consider the financial crisis of 2007, 2008 as sort of a proxy for kind of a worst case scenario. Where there is additional risk with this that I think you guys need to be cognizant of is illiquidity. And what I mean by that is, because this is a private investment, an alternative investment, in a limited partnership and not something that is publicly traded, you cannot just sell it. So the money will be tied up. However, I believe in a pension like this, which has arguably, I don't want to say an infinite time horizon, but close to it. You can afford some illiquidity. And that was the idea behind Chestnut in the past as well. And the return should be, we should have, like I said, sort of a high single digit, like sort of 8 to 9% current cash flow that will go up as interest rates go up. So I will resend all of the information, and I am, available to anyone and everyone to talk about it.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for any of our investors?
Not for me, thanks.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We'll now have a report from our actuary, Joe Duda.
Okay, I don't have a lot for today, but I'm just going to talk about the valuation, just to refresh everybody's memory from the last meeting. We do valuations once every 2 years. So the last one was 1/1/2021. And those of you who remember from last year, it was a very, very positive valuation, included 19 and 20s returns. And our unfunded liability went to, to about 7.6 million from 14.3. So I was very happy to see that. And we did use that valuation to do the MMO calculation for the township in 2022. And that MMO came out to be about 2.1, which was a decrease of about $400,000. So I was very happy to perform that calculation. Regarding this year, a few items. First, we have to prepare the non-taxable amounts for the 10 or so retirees. So we'll be doing that and probably trying to get that out next week. Because part of their pension is non-taxable because of the contributions that they make are post-tax. So that's one thing. Another thing, and I think we talked about this in prior meetings, because when I do a non-taxable calculation, it's a very involved calculation because the township does not have the total contributions for each firefighter. So what I have to do is I have a total from like 1999, and I have to create a spreadsheet and add up contributions off the AG 385 form each year for, to do one guy. It's like, adding up 22 numbers essentially. So, and I mentioned this to the board, for each firefighter, I was going to charge $300 to do that calculation. So they have it. But then I also mentioned that I would come up with a number, for the remaining firefighters to give, to calculate their total contributions. And I propose to do that at a cost of $2,500. And then it will be done, and then we'll have it for everybody. And then we could just, do it very easily when somebody retires, instead of adding up like 20 some
And
spreadsheets.
correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, I think now the township is capturing that number. Is that,
I don't think so, because
No?
I
Okay.
still give them that number. Yes,
In an ideal world, would that be better that the township was tracking that number?
Yes,
down the road?
absolutely.
Okay.
absolutely. So once I do this, I can give it to you, and then you'll have it, and then you just depend on it each year. Okay, once I come up with that calculation.
And then when we pay the check, Dave, when we do the direct deposit, we allocate the non-taxable portion.
Sure, so when they get their 1099, it's gonna say total distribution, taxable amount, and that one.
Yeah.
Right, that's
It
correct.
will tell them the non-taxable portion.
Yeah, right now we'll call Joe, and then Joe has to do the calculation.
Right.
Sure.
So that we can get the pension out.
It's,
Right.
it's time consuming for you, it's
It is.
expensive for them.
Yeah.
It is. And, it's adding up like 20, 20 AG 385 forms. You got to go to each one separately from 1999 to the current. It's really hard. But I want to get it done for the retirees who left in 2021, and then, do it for everybody. So we have it done and I could give it to the township. And they could have it for their records and then we'll be square on all that.
So Joe, sorry, I believe I thought we discussed this previously. Are you looking for authorization?
Authorization, absolutely, yes. I don't do anything unless I'm authorized.
Understood.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, okay.
No, please. Did you want to say something?
You go ahead, I'll wait.
Okay, this was just a clarification, make sure I understand correctly. When you mentioned the MMO of $2.1 million, are we talking about for this year?
For 2022.
Thank you, I
Yes.
just want to make sure.
And then I'll be preparing the MMO in September. Now, we don't have to do the valuation this year because it's once every 2 years, so I'll be using year 21. So it should be somewhat comparable to 2.1 million. Okay. Couple of other things that I am working on, which are part of the timeline, okay, for pension stuff, for the township. I have to actually file this valuation with Harrisburg. So I'll be sending this over to you, Vince, okay, for your approval. This is due March 31st. This is the Act 205 form,
Mhm.
okay, which basically codifies my results for 1/1/21. And then I'm assisting Beverly Wells with the AG 385 form, and that has to be done by March 31st. So those are the two things. So it's March 31st is a critical deadline. And then, of course, September 30th, okay, for the MMO. And usually the township, gets information over to me in August for that calculation. And then the other thing, I guess, is your audit. I don't know, is Maley coming in to do the audit soon or?
Yeah, so we received a draft copy of the audit, this past week.
Okay,
And we're working to finalize it now.
okay, this is 12/31/21.
Yeah,
Okay, because what I will need is a copy of the, and it could be draft form of the assets for the pension fund for 21. And Maley kind of knows that, what I'm looking for. I'm looking for net assets available for benefits and the changes, because I have to do some GASB 68 calculations for you.
Yeah.
Okay, for the township and also for the pension board. So that's another thing. So if they have that, if they can share it with me, that would be great.
sure.
The only other key thing is eventually we'll know what state aid is later on. in September.
Well, yeah, state aid actually fell by about 4% last
4%.
year. So hopefully that doesn't happen again this year, but who knows? But a lot of people were grumbling about that. And it's tough out there. But fortunately, the MMOs came down and that helps a little bit.
Significant.
Okay. So, and just hearing the investment report from earlier today.
Oh, you're gonna jinx us.
Well, okay, I just talk about you still have the rest of 2022. I know that. But at this point in time, we're looking good. Okay, and
Eagles fan, right?
yeah. So your unfunded liability and your MMO will come down even more when we do the 1/1/23. All things being equal, of course, if we don't have a serious correction.
Sure.
But so keep up the great work.
So I guess, how would you like me to characterize the authorization in the motion? I mean, I do want to make a motion to,
Authorization for due to actuarial consulting to calculate for each firefighter, each active firefighter, what their total contributions to the fund are as of 12/31/21.
so I will make that motion with that characterization. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Can I add something to that first?
Oh, I'm sorry.
When Joe submits his bill for that,
Yeah.
can we try to get him paid in a timelier manner?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I have no problem, like, any of the vendors, I mean, if, I know with Kara being out
Yeah.
and with what's going on around town lately, there's a lot of people are involved in a lot of different stuff. I have time to kind of fill in, and I've been doing that a lot the last year for different things. Some of our own members have some personal issues that have taken time away from things
Mhm.
that they need to attend to. So if you guys ever need anything paid, I don't mind being the gopher for that. It doesn't hurt my feelings to do that for anybody.
Thank
So if you submit your bill, make sure you send it to me, and I'll make sure that, I pick up the slack, not slack, but, I make sure that things are
Yeah.
getting done, and at least least somebody's got an eye on it a little. We
Yeah,
can try to get things paid quicker. So that's, I just want to amend that motion to, that we pay him, you know, when he's, soon as, when he's done with this,
Yeah, so
submit your bill at the same time,
right.
and we'll try to get that all.
So just to clarify, for the 10 firefighters or how
Yeah.
many we have for
I think-
2021,
believe
it
it's
would be
9.
300 for each one,
Okay,
and then 2,500 to do everybody else.
okay. And
Okay,
we amend the motion to do that.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, any objections to the amendment?
and then we'd be caught up, and then we supply you with the list, and then you guys can track it.
And we'll forward it all to the board, everybody. will get it.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I mean, Solicitor Beal, are we okay at this point, sort of procedurally? That was a little,
I think so, yeah, the amendment's been accepted, so I think by the person who moved it and seconded it, so I think you can go ahead and vote on it.
okay. All those in favor of the motion as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
And I think for clarity purposes, since we're being live streamed, our secretary for the pension board has been out on a medical leave, and that created a little bit of a disconnect. And we had a very good system in place where we were being able to remotely, electronically, Vince and I sign everything, but we can only sign what we see. And we weren't receiving this. So we were talking prior to the meeting on, before I leave, we'll have some kind of a better temporary system, correct?
Absolutely.
Just get everything.
Regarding fees that the pension plan pays, are fees deducted from the pension assets, or are they paid as a separate bill by the township?
They're paid by the pension plan, although when I do the GASB 68, what I do is I split the bill because part of the work is for the township, for your financial statements, and part of it is for the pension.
So for actuarial, it's split.
Yeah.
For management fees,
Yeah, they're from the plan.
from the
From the
plan.
plan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anything else, Joe?
That's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Well, a report from our legal counsel, Jim Beal.
Sure. So a couple of things. First off, I circulated to the providers the Act 44 disclosure forms that we've been using, which and asked the Kara and Rose to circulate that among the Board of Trustees, what they had gathered them from everybody. That's the annual disclosure of any potential business relationships, political donations, et cetera, that could have an impact on the pension plan. And I would ask that I know I turned mine in. I know I got a copy of a couple of the providers. That's okay. I don't need to see the copies. The important thing is for the trustees to see the copies. And if that's been done, terrific. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
When did you send
them.
that out, Jim?
That was shortly after the new year, Joe.
Okay, all right,
So,
okay.
but you're Joe, I know that you're boring and you have nothing to report. So,
I get writer's cramp from doing those forms, you know
but we
that.
do need them for the file.
Okay,
So,
I will get that over to you.
So that's one.
I know it's hurting me from all of this.
Yours was the only one that I received, and that was end of the year,
Okay,
last week of December.
okay. All right. Well, let's follow up with the, folks in your office, Vince, just to make sure that
We'll check.
you have them and from everybody and that they get circulated among the board.
Absolutely.
The other thing is that so CBIZ INR announced at the last meeting that they would be reducing their fee to 15 basis points for their services, and 15 basis points is 100 basis points is 1% of assets. So 15 basis points is 0.0015 of assets under management. With roughly 30 million, that's about $45,000 per year. So that'll go up as assets increase, go down as assets decrease. This is the way to think about it is it's the consulting fee on top of the underlying fees for the Vanguard funds that you're in and the other,
BlackRock and
particular,
iShares and,
you know, mutual fund investments that you're in that they oversee and that they allocate among. And this contract just reflects their responsibilities and our responsibilities to them. It is in order. And they've already implemented the 15 basis point fee since the last meeting. But we do need to keep the paperwork up to date. So I do have a contract that's ready for you to approve and sign today that I hammered out with CBIZ, confirming that 15 basis point rate. Yes.
For that 15 basis point, is there any concession at all in that contract that we're making as a township to CBIZ?
They are accepting fiduciary status for their work, which is, you know, the key, the chief concern that I have. One of the things that, tying into the discussion of the other investment, with alternative investments, you know, I think you got a good summary of what I see as the chief risks, which are one, illiquidity, and two, what I call valuation. You really are kind of putting money in a black box for however many years. And the manager is the one who sets the valuation. It's not stuff that's traded on an open market, so you can't test it every day. All right. Now, the stuff that CBIZ INR does, you can. It's very liquid. It's all public market. You can trade it. You know the value each and every day. So I think that the key responsibility that we want CBIZ INR to take on is that when they give investment advice for their $45,000 fee, they acknowledge they're acting in a fiduciary capacity, which they have. So I do believe the contract is in the best interests of the participants and beneficiaries. So with that, a formal motion to approve, and I guess we could have Vince sign or Pete sign. Just need signatures from one of the co-chairs.
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You just sign in two places, this page and this page.
And what is it?
So
Uh-huh.
you could do, we might want to have, we might want to have, you could have them both signed
Okay.
as co-chairs of the fire fund.
Second, right next to the by. Over here as well, yes.
Otherwise, there's always a discussion of stuff in Harrisburg related to public sector pensions, but nothing that's rising to the level of taking your time today. But we do monitor that. So, and I'm happy to report there's nothing to report right now. I'll let you know if that changes.
That could have changed while we were meeting.
That's
Yeah,
right.
right.
That's right. We've got 3 copies there, so if you could sign, when you have a chance, if you could sign each of those, that'd be terrific. And that'll do it for me on the legal report.
Very good. Thank you, Solicitor Beal. We do have a few more agenda items. Things that we've been discussing over the last few months and meetings. First, as we all know, we find ourselves in a kind of unusual situation with an even number of pension trustees. And so certainly when we come to a binary decision to approve or not approve, that even number forces us into constructive collaboration and consensus, which is productive. But when we come to decisions that maybe are a little bit less binary, a little bit more subjective, that situation forces us into a sort of potential stalemate or stagnation. And so we've been discussing the idea of creating a ranked choice voting system for those decisions, which would not completely eliminate the possibility of a tie vote, but would lower the potential for a tie vote and make the process and procedure of the pension board a little more streamlined and efficient and effective by, again, dramatically reducing the mathematical likelihood of a tie vote through ranked choice voting. So I did want to ask if there's any questions or concerns about that idea.
Yeah, what is that? I have no idea what ranked choice voting is.
Oh, sure. So there's 6 trustees and we all have one vote, right? The idea of ranked choice voting would be that rather than making one vote for whatever our choice would be, we would rank our top 3 choices, right? And then tabulate the allocation of our vote based on our top 3 choices, thus reducing the mathematical likelihood of a tie, because the chances that all 6 people had their 3 choices ranked in exactly the way that would create a tie are much lower. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, concerns from the trustees, thoughts?
Is this only for the RFP process?
Well, I think that's a good question for the solicitor. I imagine it would be for any decision that had a character that would allow for it, right? I mean, again, if we're voting to approve or not approve a pension, the ranked choice wouldn't really be effective. So I think it would apply to any decision that the board makes where there are more than 2 potential outcomes. And I mean, solicitor, please correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, I mean, right now what the trust agreement provides is for deadlock arbitration if there's a deadlock vote. So, I mean, I would anticipate that a ranked choice, and the trust agreement is an agreement between the union and the township. So I think that and I'm going to try to pull it up to see if the trustees have the ability to amend that on their own, or if it has to go back to the union and the township for their buy-in as well. Let me see if I can track that down. I do think that, procedurally, the ranked choice voting makes sense if it makes the most sense in a provider selection situation. Like if you interview 3 candidates for something, and then, that could streamline it, because I've been in jointly trustee trust fund meetings where providers have been at issue, and ranked choice voting would have sped up the meeting, certainly. So, but also a question, has this been done with the other, with the police fund and the municipal fund, and how's it working, or?
So it's been discussed. It's been discussed with the police fund, but it hasn't been enacted by the police fund at this stage. The police fund initiated their RFP process before they considered the idea of ranked choice voting. So the thought was that while you were in the middle of an open process was not the proper time to amend the voting system.
Okay.
Right, so that's, and I'm not aware of any discussion of it on the municipal fund. The municipal fund operates sort of differently than the police and fire
That's
funds.
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. All right. Well, with the leave of the board, I do want to, I thought I had a computer copy of the trust agreement on my system, and I don't, and I do want to refer to that before I finalize my advice to you. Would it be possible to table this matter briefly, and so that I can, the questions that I would answer is, would any trust agreement amendment be necessary? And if so, would that be within the power of the trustees, or would that have to go back to the union and the township?
Sure, that's certainly okay with me. If it's, yeah, Tom.
We'll make the motion to table. Can we make the motion also? I know Mr. Heyman called for the last executive meeting and he was unable to attend. And I know you wanted to discuss some other matters. You know, for the sake of that conversation with the RFP process and the ranked choice stuff, is that something that would be better had in an executive session? That we could probably, if we can't come here, at least do Zoom so everybody has a chance to be there, and then we can discuss that amongst ourselves, and Mr. Beal as legal counsel can be there and we can have that discussion without the vendors present.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. And I would note for those who are here and for the public, we were able to meet in executive session prior to this meeting and discuss some of these things. So I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that that executive session took place. And it sounds like we will be tabling the idea of ranked choice voting and the RFP process pending a future executive session and advice of counsel.
Yeah, just for, clarification for the public itself, that fire pension only meets twice a year.
Right.
With our vendors and everything else like that, but we are able to have executive sessions throughout. So in the essence of time and everything else, like, I think we should do, give Mr. Beal enough time to review what he needs to review. And then we'll come back in an executive session in a month or so, maybe.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And actually, I mean, I didn't make a formal motion, so I don't know that we require a motion to table. I think we just have an informal
Discussion.
agreement here that that's how we're going to proceed. Is that right, Mr. Beal?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. I mean, I think that's good progress. I think that's an important conversation for the board to have with the solicitor. And so with that, I don't know if you'd like me to turn over to you, Tom, for the approval of the 403B.
It's actually I was looking at something else for my wife when for that
I'm
email.
sorry,
It's a-
457.
We have a 457.
I'm sorry.
And we brought that back up in October. I have a new document there that I printed up for your signature today. It's the same, everything, Mr. Beal had reviewed it. Everything's pretty much what's given to any other 457 plan. It's only purely for the approval of the loan process. So you're, as a participant in that plan, if you wanted to borrow, you're borrowing your own money and you're paying back yourself with interest. And it's all handled through the provider, through Nationwide. Everything's initiated through Nationwide. Everything will be paid through ACH. We're not doing payroll deduction. That's also fixed on that, checked off on that box there. So it's, I know other people have benefited from that. It's just, you have access to money that you've been saving, you pay it back in a timely manner. It's all done through Nationwide. If you default, it's all handled through Nationwide. It doesn't cost the plan anything. It doesn't cost the township anything.
If I may say,
Yeah.
coming from industry, this is a very common provision in these types of plans, 401k plans, 457s.
Right.
Yeah, just when this plan was put together 15 years ago almost, it was just an oversight.
One of the things it can do that is a real strong benefit is in an emergency situation, a firefighter could borrow money and not have to quit his or her employer to get the money out of the plan to deal with a personal emergency. So this sort of obviates that potential problem. So it has a lot of value in that way.
Yeah, no, and I'd just like to say, I really appreciate the work and time and effort that you've put into it, Tom. I think it's a great benefit to provide to the firefighters. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
We have some retirement.
Well, we should, I guess we need a motion to approve, yeah.
Just one more point of clarification. So Chief Huff and I had talked before. I know it just needed your signature, but Chief Huff and I talked about other things. There's some stuff with CBIZ that they said, oh, it only needs one signature from either co-chair. It doesn't matter. I'd like to make it a point that both of you are aware and both of you sign for anything. I'd rather, it's just so we all know what's going on. It's just, it keeps it, to me, fair. Instead of just sign it, don't worry about it. I'd rather you both still you know, sign any document that comes before us that has to be either paid or, you know, whatever, you know, if you
Sure,
understand.
no, I'm certainly comfortable with that, and I appreciate it. I guess my recommendation would be that we make a motion to approve the 457B, and then maybe
We'll discuss that.
consult the solicitor about how we formalize your request.
Cool. I'll make the motion that document gets approved and signed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it.
There you go.
Thank you.
On the two signature requirement, I do have a recommendation, which would be that either you use two signatures or one signature with one email confirmation.
And really, up until now, that's been what we've done. I mean, there's no, again, since we're live streaming, there's been no opposition or problems with that.
Yeah.
So for years, I've been signing the bills probably for 25 years, I guess. Pre-pandemic, it was easy. I would just come in and they would be here and I would sign them and then they would make their way to the administration for payment. But with our secretary, we were able to come up with the electronic process, which I referenced earlier, that kind of got disrailed with her being out. So we do have a very easy system for that.
No, and I agree with that, and I certainly don't have a problem with how it's been going. I don't know if, I mean, but I guess if the trustees are requesting sort of a little bit more formality to it, I'm also okay with that. I don't, yeah, I just want to make sure I'm being
I'm
responsible.
not saying it hasn't happened that way, like, but I was told with, one of the, an outstanding bill, we were told that, oh, it only needs one signature, and I kind of like felt
Right.
a little uneasy with
Yeah,
that, being
sure.
told that. So I just wanted to make it a point, so, you know, like I said, I've been handling a lot of different things, because, Chief Huff's been occupied with a personal matter. But it's just something, like, not saying I didn't know about it or anything, I just want to make sure that it's done that way going forward. I know what the vendor says, but I just feel personally better that both co-chairs are made aware, both co-chairs approved and signed together. So it's not really a motion or anything, it's just more or less a housekeeping thing.
Yeah, understood.
My question was there anything that, you know, we already had in the trust agreement or whatever that it's really always, for the most part, been done that way?
No, I think I'm unaware of any, specific trust or plan document requirement. I think that what's worked the best for my clients is either two signatures or one signature with, some type of email confirmation of approval. And if you want to confirm that here, I think you can by motion.
Okay, so I guess I would make a motion that in order to approve or sign any official documents of the plan, we have either the signature of both co-chairs or one signature with confirmed email approval.
No, you second that, Tom? Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, very good. I think that's, I appreciate that as well. That's very productive. So anyone, any old, oh, I'm
Before
sorry.
that, I'm sorry, we
Yeah,
have the retirements, for purposes of the entire board being here, we did have a few retirements that took place since the last meeting. Firefighter Harry Weed and firefighter Daniel McGardle. And I believe all that paperwork's in place now.
Yeah, I do have, I don't know if this is a new business thing or an old business thing. I already brought it up to Mr. Beal, but both firefighters were service-connected disabilities, and that was settled. Their work injuries were settled out through the township. Their effective retirement dates were both December 1st as part of the agreement. So in essence with that, this goes back to the same conversation we had earlier in the year. I guess it might have even been October, if you recall the when Daniel Laney retired, was also service connected disability. We don't have a disability retirement like other pension plans in the township, so it's not. There's no windfall. There's no huge like payout or anything like that. So the only thing is when you mark somebody as a disability pension with us, it allows for the payment in the event of their death, the health insurance, or not the health insurance, the death benefit that's in the contract. So any other retiree retires, it's a $12,000 of life insurance until age 65, and at age 65 it reduces to, I believe, 5. If you retire as a disability connected, it remains 12 after 65, and we approved that for Fire Marshal Lanny back in October, and Harry Weed and Dan McArdle in the same situation. So, like I said, I don't know if this is old business, new business, or because we're discussing it now, if I can make the motion to have those two retirements approved as disabilities. And that simply is for the life insurance purposes, according to our contract that was in effect when they retired.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
And that shouldn't change any of the calculations because it's
Yeah.
based on the accrued benefit.
Correct. We have it's,
Okay, so,
if,
yeah.
just for clarification to anybody listening, if anybody that's in service of the township as a firefighter at any point in their career becomes disabled to the point to where they can no longer work, obviously, it'll go to some sort of workers' comp settlement, things like that. But when you are medically retired from the firefighter, from being a firefighter here, you get a normal pension. It's just the time on the books is the time that you have, and calculated that way. It's not, there's no, like how the police have what they have. Ours is just simply what you have on the books is what you have. You're just, no matter what age you are, you're made retirement age, just for the sake of,
And both
Of
these
calculating
gentlemen
your
are
pension.
of retirement
yeah,
age, so
but
that's not
they
even
are,
an issue.
they're both 30, at least 32 years plus on, off the top of my head, I don't have it, but they've been here, they were in service for 30 years to this township. And
Understood.
And I'd like to acknowledge both Harry Weed and Dan McArdle for their each over 30-plus years of service to the township, two very highly respected firefighters with very proud careers. I worked with them for a long time.
Absolutely.
And also under retirement, we do have an application for retirement for Captain Robert Johnson, who
he will be,
last.
his last shift will be the last day of the month, February 28th. He'll be retired effective March 1st. Captain Johnson is also he would have 35 years of service to this township. Captain Bob, if you ever had the chance to meet him, is a very unique individual. He's a good guy. A lot of people are going to miss not having him around, but knowing Bob, he'll be back a couple times a week just to say hello. So his stuff, I have everything in order. I've been working with Bev because Kara's been out.
Right, sure.
But, we'll get it all pushed through the same we have for everybody else. So just to give Captain Bob some acknowledgement before our next.
He was hired in 1985. That's when he started.
So he's going to be missed.
Absolutely. No, we certainly congratulate Captain Johnson on his excellent career with the township. Thank you for those words, Pete and Tom.
And moving forward, I guess, do we have any old business?
Hey, just a couple of comments. So in terms of I'm not sure what, in terms of any RFP process for professional services, just a reminder, Act 44 has all sorts of really obnoxious requirements with respect to that. They can be, we have to advertise, we have to probably post something up on the township's website. I think you've been through this process before with other plans, so we just have to make sure we do all of
When
that.
we have our executive session, I would request that you come, and that'll be, obviously to talk about the ranked choice voting. But if you can bring to the table whatever you have for the RFP, so we can have that discussion as well. And I hope to walk out of that meeting, we can have everything
Yeah.
finalized there and approved, and we can move forward.
Is that all right with the rest of the board? Makes sense,
Yeah.
right?
I think you adopted procedures a couple of years ago too for, for that kind of process. So it's just a few procedural hoops that you need to jump through so that our friends in the legislature are satisfied. And the other thing is that thankfully I did have a copy of the trust agreement on my computer system that I found after I told you I didn't. Just for everyone's point of reference, the trust agreement does require approval of the union and the township as union and township, in addition to the unanimous consent of the trustees. So I think that what I would suggest is that we may not need an amendment to adopt choice ranking, but as council, I would want, the township and the union as township and union to be comfortable with that if you proceed in that fashion.
Sure.
So if you adopt rules and regulations in that fashion, I wouldn't want the union or the township to argue later on, well, that really should have required a trust amendment and you didn't consult with us. So perhaps, and this is all something we can do, away from this table, but that's what I'd recommend in terms of next steps.
Okay.
Sure, that sounds good. Any other old business? Seeing none? Any new business?
New business? Any personal comments or before we close? I would just like to say, I want to publicly thank Tom Thornton for his help. As many of you know, my wife has been very sick for the past year, and he has filled in remarkably to help assist me with a lot of that. And I apologize for some of the delays in myself getting back to some of our vendors, professionals, and also you, Vince, but Tom has done a very good job, and also Ethan. The two of them have really stepped it up and have helped a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And please do not worry about pension business. We all understand your circumstance, and our, best wishes are with you, your family.
Thank you.
So if there's no other business, I guess I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion for adjournment.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yeah, Paul was
Yeah,
going,
the last
thanks,
two
Paul.